I'm delighted to say Aaron Kernan is with us. Aaron, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Ger.
Did the brawl help or hinder Armagh, do you think?
To be honest, I'm not really sure it had much of an effect on them. I don't think it changed the outcome of the game the way I probably imagined it would have. I suppose the nature of how chaotic the game had got towards the end of normal time, it didn't seem to knock either side off their stride. Yes, there were mistakes and there was people going down with cramp, and decision making was always going to be different. But no, in terms of what actually happened, I think both teams spent enough time refocusing and going out and making sure that they did what they had to do to finish out the game and get the win. And fortunately, for Galway, they just managed to have a bit more composure whenever it comes to the penalties then.
It did seem as if Galway recovered composure in extra time in a way that the last 10 minutes or last 8 minutes of the added time at the end of normal time, that their composure had deserted them. I don't know, maybe they got a bit of righteous indignation or something in the changing room from it. It just felt like a little bit Galway somehow managed to recover from a situation where it looked like they were in rag order.
They did, and I would have felt that Armagh definitely were the team in the ascendancy. Like, realistically, Galway had the game won and won well. Like 6 points up with a couple of minutes to go. You expect to see that out. But in fairness to our boys, they stuck at it. You can say maybe some of the goals were fortuitous, but we put the ball into the danger area and we had the right men in the right place, and it made for an absolutely grandstand finish. And I know obviously the past few years have been difficult on everybody, but I suppose from an Armagh perspective, it's a long time since we've been that close and that competitive in an All-Ireland quarter-final, the business end of the season. And I think our supporters really got involved and made it an unbelievable occasion, and it carried on for practically another hour after that between the extra time and the penalties.
What's the standing of the management team at the moment? Because this does not feel like it's a team that has finished. It doesn't feel like it's a team that's reaching the end of a road. It feels like we're, I think, the last couple of years, as you say, we would have seen a performance like this from Armagh through the back door if there had been a back door during the COVID championship, and we would have got to this point a little bit earlier, certainly in terms of the rest of the country paying attention to what was happening, because we saw the quality of the football they played in the league this year. So I presume no one's clamouring for a change, and that actually everybody feels like you're in the middle of something here as opposed to towards the end of it.
Yeah, like that wouldn't even be coming into the equation after yesterday evening. I would have to say I would fully expect the management team to stay on. And I suppose if you just look at it, again, we're not the excuses. Genuinely, I felt Galway probably were the better team. We just showed grit to stick in it whenever it was going away from us. But we're missing a few key players as well there yesterday. Just they're out through injury, where maybe the likes of Derry at the moment who've made the breakthrough, they're quite fortunate where they've a full hand to pick from. So definitely there are a few key faces who will come back into the mix next year that will make us even stronger in terms of, they'll definitely be starters, or even they'll bolster your bench. So the options that we would have, like we had two boys coming on yesterday, Justin Cairn, they could get a couple of minutes against Donegal, and Owen Woods from Carrick I'd never played for us at senior level. So they were boys you're bringing on at the end of normal time that have no real experience at this level. So our bench, well, their experience and what they gained yesterday, they'll be better for it. But definitely there are other key personnel, another 4 or 5 players that will make us a better group for next year, and I would fully expect that management team to be the ones to lead them.
It's interesting you talk about feeling like Galway were actually the better team, because that seems to be a consensus that's building. But in the first 15-20 minutes, it didn't look like they were the better team, and it felt almost as if the game is there for Armagh if there's just a little bit more self-belief, or I don't know, is it experience? Because like the gap between the two teams was, there was no gap at the end of extra time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there actually elements that Armagh are going to be looking back on that going, Jesus, that was right there for us if we just did X, Y and Z?
No, apologies. You're right in terms of the first 20 minutes. I thought we completely controlled the game. I thought we had a better team. I thought we looked like we'd settle really well. I think a big one that we will look back at regrets is the 2 goal opportunities that we actually created, that we worked on, which was Jarly O'Byrne's, where he breaks through, and fist the ball over the bar. And then the other one was where Ger and Eoin hits a superb pass. Everything he's going to shoot into the hill, hits a nice wee diagonal ball into Aidan Nugent. Greg McCabe comes straight off Aidan's right shoulder heading towards goal, but Aidan turned thinking he was going to get shot off himself, and they end up getting blocked. And out of those two attempts, we got 1 point. You know, and I think if you just look at the day before, for me, it's a mentality thing where Derry are clearly looking for goals. It's something that they're clearly speaking about and something that they're clearly working on in training. They have a ruthless streak in them. Once they get, even if it's a half a sniff, they're going for goal. They don't care. And I think that's one aspect that Armagh in particular will look back with regret. But it's an area that obviously you can work on and you can identify. But as for yesterday, it was an area that I think at that stage that you were speaking about, first 15, 20 minutes, if Jarlio goes for goal and Nick goes in, I would have thought that we definitely would have had complete control of the game, because at that stage, Galway were still finding their feet, where we looked like we were really settled and assured. And then obviously they reeled us in, and you go in half time, a draw game, where we basically had control of it for the vast majority.
So what changed then? What allowed Galway to reel Armagh in?
I thought that I was in the canal end, so I thought their forward shape, they looked a bit confused about where they all were going to play, and I'm talking about in particular the danger men, Comer, Finnerty, Walsh. They never really looked like they were getting in threatening positions. They never looked like they were available for a nice wee pop inside pass, like the ones I'm speaking about that Ray and O'Neill give in to Aidan Nugent for the goal chance, or there was another one into Aidan Nugent. He literally just led out from basically the end line straight in front of goal, wins it into 14, pops it off a shoulder to Ray O'Neill, taps it over the bar. Simple scores Armagh were getting. But Galway then started to have more men ahead of the ball, so that they were winning possession in the inside forward line. And then coming on the loop, Matthew Tierney had a super one off his left foot. Rob Finnerty had a cracking one coming in off the Hogan stand off his left foot. So it was I don't know whether they were overthinking it in terms of, you know, trying to take Armagh players into different positions, or whether they just got a bit knocked back by Armagh's intensity. But once they got settled into the game, I felt that at all times they had their danger men in the right areas. So it was particularly Comer and Finnerty. I thought Walsh was really well marshalled throughout the whole game. But yeah, their forward shape in particular changed, and defensively they were very standoffish. I don't know whether they're afraid of giving away a free or committing to a tackle and getting skipped by. But they were quite passive early on, and they fairly got the grips with their boys. They had pressure on the man on the ball, and then they always had a second man who was coming in to double up, which basically slowed Armagh's play and made the next pass go backwards, and then we had to come forward again and Galway then obviously were much better set up. So all in all, you have to give them credit. They adapted to the game, whether it was managerial tweaks or instructions or the players themselves. They definitely showed good composure to keep themselves in a game whenever it looked like it was going away from them.
And that's like the really optimistic thing for Galway going into the semi-final, is that like they would have been put through the ringer yesterday, but that is such a huge amount of credit to have in the bank going into that semi-final, and specifically, as you say, to be able to figure out that defensive system that Armagh employed yesterday, and to know that their management can get it right in game, or that their players can figure it out themselves in game, is a hugely encouraging thing before that Derry match.
Absolutely, and to be fair, everyone would have had their question marks over Galway more from a mental perspective whenever games were going against them. Obviously not in terms of the skill attributes that they have. So like they will take, well, they would have been really disappointed at the time to throw away a 6-point lead late on. I think whenever Porrick Joyce sits back himself and his management team, it's the character that they showed in the first half. It's the character that they showed to come out in extra time or penalties. Like you can't quantify that. Joyce could take them out to Lockgeorge, the training centre, as often as he wants, and try and convince them that, you know, we're good enough and this is our year and why wait for another year. But what they actually did yesterday, he has genuinely something to work with them in terms of what he would have seen, and I suppose the pride that he would have had in them, that they were able to see out difficult situations, keep their calmness and composure. And I suppose it was all over the field. I just thought that they had an assurance about them. Kieran Malloy in particular, to me, in that 15 minutes before half time, I thought he looked really, really good on the ball himself, and them Silk obviously have huge, I suppose, a huge winning mentality whenever it comes to Croke Park, because of what they've done off the back of their Corofin exploits, and like, they would have no inferiority complex to anybody, but those boys in particular got on a huge amount of ball, were very composed on it, very calm, and just seeing out a difficult time for them. And like I said, then they were able to come in at half time, draw, and momentum starting to really build with them. So all in all, they'll be absolutely delighted with what they would have got out of yesterday in terms of the mental, I suppose, baggage that they might have had. I think I heard one of the stats that they'd only won maybe one game in Croke Park in this past 13 or 14 years, which is incredible to think whenever you give the quality of players that they have. So to win a game in that fashion, it wasn't a game where it went and won easy. To have to absolutely go to the penny or collar and be asked every question possible and more and still answer them, it's a terrific way to go into a semi-final.
How do you stop Derry then?
That's a difficult one. It'll be a different prospect to Armagh, because while I felt yesterday was going to go the way that it did pan out, because I thought both teams have definitely improved. Like, Galway have improved defensively and how they were in the league final this year. Armagh massively improved from what they were against Monaghan last year in terms of the amount of goals they conceded. But I knew they would still keep enough men ahead of the ball that they could play direct styles, and they would rack up big scores. Derry obviously kill you on a counter-attack. You just simply can't carry the ball into traffic to get turnovers, and you can't kick it away needlessly. But to be fair to Galway, I think they have enough really good quality footballers, and I think that's why yesterday will be massive, because of the actual self-belief and confidence that they will take from it. It's knowing when to pick a pass inside to your inside men. Like, I still wouldn't be risk averse to putting a long ball in to Damien Comer and having runners coming off him, because he has the physical attributes to win that ball, and then he has the quality to come off either shoulder, whether it's Finnerty or Walsh from either wing. So for me, like, I think you have to ask their questions. I know to a certain extent you do still need to play the game on their terms, but ultimately, if you want to beat them, you need to do what suits you best. And Galway need to be working on that fine balance over the next few weeks in terms of being composed in possession at all times, but still asking questions of the Derry full back line in their full back line. Not having Comer doing what Michael Murphy done and coming out the field to try and get on balls and working 1-2s and trying to bust through tackles from there. Because it takes the likes of your Brendan Rodgers out the field. You've seen what Conor McCluskey done the other day, Christy McKaig up taking shots. So Derry defenders, they are more than happy if you start taking them out the field. So it's Galway finding that right balance between being sensible what to do in play, but also still having their danger men in the right areas, that they can cause Derry trouble.
One of the things you mentioned, Corofin there, like, obviously the Slaughtneil players have the experience of going to the end of the season in big games, and so this isn't an inexperienced Derry side, even though at this level they don't have this experience at senior inter-county level. So there's no fear when you're talking about what level of performance we're going to get from them. Derry will show up against Galway no matter what is thrown at them. I get the sense that they're going to play to their potential in this game.
And that's the incredible thing about what they've done this year. I sort of felt that the Tyrone performance, I would have thought, well, I would have known with Rory Gallagher that they were going to be so well set up, so focused, so motivated all year with this one big game in place. But to then go and back it up since is incredible. And it just goes to show how focused and how united as a group they are, and how much they have bought into him and his philosophies, and they're going to be incredibly hard to beat. Like, this game is going to the wire. Galway need to prepare for what happened yesterday again, because there's no way this is going to be an easy day out for anybody. Derry will go for the full 70 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it takes, and for me that is the biggest thing that they have improved on this year in terms of the style of football they play and the high energy and men behind the ball. We've seen all that a million times, and so many teams have tried to replicate it, since Jimmy McGuinness broke in with this Donegal team in the early, it was 11, 12, obviously, whenever they won the All-Ireland. But no one has been able to even get close to replicate doing what they were doing until this Derry team. It's been absolutely incredible, the turnaround in them, considering where they've come over this past few years. And even they could have taken a huge knockback in terms of the hiding that Galway gave them in Owen Begg, the second last league game, whenever basically everything was riding in that game. It could have derailed them completely, where players could have, within themselves and maybe their own weak groups, felt like, are we doing the right thing in terms of how we're tactically set up? But they obviously brushed it off very easily, put it off as a one-off, and they've regrouped hugely from that.
And the thing with the Jim McGuinness comparison and the Donegal comparison is that it feels like that this Derry team could get over the line at the first time of asking. It kind of feels like whatever they were doing over the last few years of COVID has made a real difference, in a way that, Donegal obviously had to lose that semi-final in 2011 and come back a more evolved team in 2012. I may be getting way carried away with Saturday here, but it feels like Derry are closer to the finished article this year than Donegal potentially were in 2011.
To be fair, you wouldn't be that far gone. Whenever it's the ruthlessness that they had the other day, and how much they wanted to go for the throat straight away. And you can say it, right, it's only Clare, but it was an All-Ireland quarter-final. It was a big game for Derry too. It could have been a hangover from the Ulster final. They could have been happy with their lot, but they're clearly not. They're absolutely, they've ticked one box now, and it wasn't about winning a quarter-final, and it won't be about winning the semi-final, and they won't openly come out and say it, but they're going to win the All-Ireland. That's all that they have in their head, and that's a difficult animal to hold back whenever they're playing with the energy and the intensity and the madness that they are at the moment that they have throughout the whole championship. So no, they are very much focused on, they want to win this All-Ireland, and it's not a matter of waiting for next year and hopefully evolve and develop and get a few more players. No, it's now. Their plan is to win the All-Ireland this year. Well, they've not wait anymore.
The point about the Clare thing is, as you say, people will go, oh, it's only Clare, but they've done exactly the same thing against Division 1 teams in Ulster the whole way through. They've always, when there's been a goal opportunity on, they've been like, yeah, we're going to take that. There's no fisting the ball over the bar with these guys.
No, and that's why it would be lazy analysis to turn around and try and throw it at, it's just Clare. It would be disrespectful, obviously, Clare, and very disrespectful to Derry. They've been doing this, they went after Tyrone. Tyrone were absolutely annihilated as All-Ireland champions within their own backyard. Monaghan done everything they could to stick with them, couldn't do it. Derry, or Donegal, to be fair, maybe looked late on like they maybe had them beat, but Derry just stuck to their principles, stuck to what they were going to do, and chased down what looked like a defeat and managed to salvage a win out of it. So they won't care. They won't care who they come up against. The self-belief and the drive that was in that group. They, like I said, they've ticked one box, but they'll absolutely have visions of something much bigger.
Pádraig Joyce was very against penalty shootouts. This is not soccer, essentially, was what he was saying. Kieran McGeaney was like, look, the way things are at the moment, asking fans and supporters to come to Dublin again, it's too expensive. We all knew what the story was heading into the championship. There's heartbreak in sport. It's what it is. Where do you stand on this morning?
I agree. It is what it is. We knew before the season started that there's going to be penalties. Everyone from Armagh was saying, as we were leaving the ground yesterday, that's no way to lose. But my thing is, so say if we come back next weekend, obviously you have the expense for families and supporters. But then what happens if it ends in a draw next week and the All-Ireland semi-finals the following week? Do we have to go to penalties next week? Is it okay next week? If you know what the rules are, you can't be complaining today about it. It is what it is. I would have rather the game to be finished and completed yesterday. It's not ideal. It's new in terms of this stage of knockout championship football. But my thing is, if it was a draw next week, it went extra time, it was still a draw, we're going to have to do penalties at some stage, So, and I would rather, if we had been lucky enough to get over yesterday, to have your week's break, to then go and prepare for an All-Ireland semi-final. So the big thing that we always spoke about for years in terms of your calendar that was going to accommodate your club and your county players and give certainty was that you had to put a proper structure, and the only way that you can guarantee that you're going to finish out games and not having them dragging on all year is by playing to a close on the day. Now, the biggest probably issue in terms of I would have as a GA person yesterday was what happened to Mayo and Kerry. You know, like I don't know how they remain focused, and I would be fairly sure that the drag on and the layoff in their game affected their game. It affected the atmosphere, obviously, in their game, but psychologically, it had to be a huge hindrance to both those players. So I definitely think in terms of the time that it took for penalties and that the GA absolutely have to tighten up on that. It seemed like it took forever. It could have took about 20 minutes from the end of extra time for the penalties. I couldn't understand. Maybe it was because it was the such biggest high profile game, it was on TV, they were trying to tick every box, but it just took forever and the atmosphere nearly died with us. So that's the biggest thing that I think the GA needs to get. If we're going to go for penalties, that's fine. We all know where to stand. Get out and get practicing them. You know, it's as simple as that. I heard obviously Sean Cavanagh saying it's not a fundamental of our game in terms of penalty taking, but free takers are the ones who go out and practice after training every night because they're going to hit the frees. So if you're going to be hitting penalties, get out and practice every night, and we can't be using it as an excuse.
I agree with that 100%. Aaron, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Not a problem, man.